Today's edition, though, on the Golden Era podcast, we are talking about the $1 Million Man, heels of all time. Mooney, how you doing today?
I'm doing great because we're going to cover another one of my favorite topics. So we're going to really dive into this one because he one of the greatest heels ever, and his philosophy behind it is great. We'll get into that too. So we got a lot to talk about.
Yeah, a lot to unpack here. Before we even get to everything, I want to ask you a question, though, is there's always these lists that come out, top 10 wrestlers who never became world champion. $1 Million Man is certainly one of them, but he's usually top 1 or 2. Are you surprised that he didn't ever actually officially become world champion, or we're living in a babyface world, so that doesn't happen?
Well, we've had this discussion before, and I know having conversations with Bruce Pritchard about some of these guys that some of these wrestlers didn't need straps around their waist. And although Ted had one, the $1 million belt, of course, but we knew the significance of that. So, some of these guys could they could stay on top and remain at the top of the card, and they didn't have to have a title. So, he's certainly one of those. So, it's they still come along. There's still guys that I think that have that presence and that personality and that gimmick where they can generate heat without having a title to go with it.
Of course. And I'm imagining besides the $1 Million Man, because his gimmick gives him actual petty cash, we'll discuss in a minute. But if you're another wrestler like a Jake the Snake Roberts, I'm imagining that when you get the championship, suddenly you are treated differently within the company. There's more money in your pocket because now you're probably the headliner, and also merchandise sales would go up as well.
Yeah.
$1 Million Man, though, obviously, if you're a wrestler, you want to become champion, but his character and the way they treated his character, perhaps without a championship, it doesn't matter because he's still going to make the money and get a lot of money to spend.
Yeah, but you're right in the sense when you do get that title, how you're treated, your stock so much as a professional wrestler does go up. And so there's a lot to be said about that. Bret Hart's talk about that, what it meant to become a champion, because it forever elevates you to, the upper echelon of professional wrestlers. And of course, it comes with a bigger paycheck. You're going to make a lot more money. So, and it is, and when it's all said and done, it is a measure of your career, to be able to have in your Wikipedia or whatever it is, all your different championships in different territories where you held these belts. It just shows, what a performer that you are or were. So, yeah, there's a lot of that goes with it, but talking from a purely over standpoint, some guys didn't need it. And you mentioned Jake Roberts. I think Jake Roberts falls into that category as well.
Oh yeah, I think there's like a gigantic list of people from Razor Ramon, the Big Boss Man. The list can go on and on of wrestlers who are so good and so over that, man, they would have been great to see him as world champion. But at the same time, did they need it? But of course, money. It's called the wrestling business. You want to make money.
That's what it's all about.
Speaking of money, because everyone has a price for the $1 Million Man. This character has got to be one of the greatest of all time because it's so simple too. It's a man who's wealthier than you, who uses his money, he flaunts it in front of you, and then treats you like garbage. To me, that is so simple to how we all feel. When we see our neighbor have a better car or a bigger house, we're jealous, we're angry at them. Why do they have this? Why not me? $1 Million Man has natural heat with this starting off this gimmick, right?
Oh, no question about it. And you just, went down the list here. But what it really basically comes down to is that he is a bully. That character is a bully. And, I went back and I listened to my conversation with Ted on Primetime with Sean Mooney. And it's, looking back at just how much I enjoyed that conversation. But one part of it that really stuck with me is that he kind of breaks down the how a heel works and the different ones that you have. And he said in his gimmick, he was what you call a chicken shit heel. And then the other side, you've got the tough guy heel. Ted's character, the $1 Million Man, was a chicken shit heel. And what he means by that, what he means with the psychology of this, is that he is that bully who gets away with all of this, looking down on people, treating them like dirt, doing all these awful, terrible things to people that are weaker than him.
Mm-hmm.
And then he finally meets up with somebody who's not going to put up with it, who's going to take care of him, who's going to even the score. And he says, you never get tired of seeing that guy getting his ass kicked, ever. So, he gets back and he finds a way, he blusters and he gets himself back in, or he gets alliances with other people, and then gets his ass kicked again. And he says, in that way, you're going to remain a heel forever. On the other side, you've got the tough guy heel. You're talking your Stone Cold. You're talking, The Rock. These kind of guys who are legit tough guys, and they don't care. You think they're a good guy or a bad guy? They don't care. They're who they are. And if you mess with me, Fafo, you're going to find out. And that's exactly that's the perfect explanation. And that's what the $1 Million Man was. He was a chicken shit heel, and boy, maybe the best, or certainly at the top of that list.
Right, because if years would go on with other people having gimmicks sort of like this, Alberto Del Rio is one of them, but then you'd have other characters who would be a heel, but like a cool heel, but you want to buy their shirt, hang out with them, have a beer with them. $1 Million Man is someone you want to spit on. You want to push down and say, you're not better than me. I'm better than you. Even though you could probably buy me 10 times over. You mentioned, though, your interview with him. And on this episode of The $1 Million Man, we're going to highlight some clips from the interview you had with him a few years ago on Prime Time with Sean Mooney. And this first clip I want to play, though, is why he believes Vince McMahon picked him for this gimmick. Because imagine, this could have been anybody. Anybody could have been given this gimmick. Would it have worked? But let's hear $1 Million Man's thoughts on this, and then we'll get back to that.
Okay.
I think it's because of the way I carried myself as a heel.
Yeah.
And the deal is that, and I'm sure, if you asked Vince would say, if it weren't for me, like Ted DiBiase, there'd never been anything. Well, Ted DiBiase in wrestling as it was that day was already somebody. In terms of in the territories, and I was in line to possibly be the NWA World Heavyweight Champion. But what it was, I believe, is that I carried myself I was what we in wrestling call pardon the expression, but a chicken shit heel, a bully,
right? Yeah,
a guy who talks real big, gets in your face, but when he's confronted, he becomes a coward. And he takes all the shortcuts. And when you're that kind of a heel, you never get you never get tired of seeing him get his butt kicked.
Yeah.
And now there's the other kind of heel is a tough guy heel. And I've always said this: if you're a tough guy heel, eventually the people are going to turn you babyface because everybody loves a tough guy.
Yeah. Right.
That's what happened to The Rock, and that's what happened to Stone Cold. Yeah. Eventually, the fans turned him good because they love a tough guy. But when you're, and like again, JBL was the cowboy version of me.
Right.
He never got tired of seeing him get his butt kicked because he would become a coward. Yeah. And I think a lot of it was the fact that he had seen me interview, and he knew I could interview very well, the way I carried myself. And basically that's what he was describing to me. This $1 Million Man, he's a bully. He's a bully with his wealth. He bullies everybody. He looks down at everybody, and that's my estimation of why he chose me.
Yeah.
There you go. From the words of the $1 Million Man, and it's how can you argue with the fact that Vince McMahon looks at him, this $1 Million Man gimmick, and says, like, man, I think you could pull this off? Because do you think that sometimes gimmicks make the person, or do you feel like the person makes the gimmick? Like here, would this have worked for someone else besides Ted DiBiase?
I think it's what you mentioned there in the latter, that it's the person that has to make the gimmick. There's been a lot of great gimmicks that, you would think are going to go over great, and they don't, just because the guy that they've given it to just can't pull it off. And then you have people like Dusty Rhodes who can wear polka dots and still make it work. And Ted DiBiase was a natural here. But it is interesting. Now you have to imagine, as you would look back with this, how many people Vince considered. I bet it was a lot of different guys that he was thinking about. Maybe he could do it. Maybe he could do it. And as Ted says there, that when it came all down to it. And he said the way he carried himself, because if you knew about Ted DiBiase back then, and he said he wasn't just some guy he plucked out of nowhere. He was a big deal in Mid-South, and Mid-South was a very respected territory. People like Hacksaw Jim Duggan and Junkyard Dog all came from there. Jake was there. But Ted never really had a gimmick. He was Ted DiBiase. And so it's interesting that one of the biggest gimmicks ever, where you have so many layers to this guy, was given to somebody who didn't go from one gimmick to another. He was Ted DiBiase, and that, in a sense, there was a part of him, at least the one that stepped into the ring, that Vince McMahon saw and said, yes, that's the guy. He's not playing a character. I'm buying whatever he's selling in that ring. And I think that once they had that conversation, it didn't take long for Vince to make up his mind that this is the guy I want, and he's going to be able to do this.
It's insane to think that too, because you're right. Like Ted DiBiase, I would compare him to like Mike Rotundo, who later became IRS, where they're just really good at wrestling. That's their bit. Hey, I'm good at wrestling. I wear plain trunks. I'm a young boy. I come down, I do all the good things, and I fight the good fight, or I'm a bad guy, and I do the bad guy things. Here, you have to have faith in this man to cut promos in a very specific way, because you're going to have to use a lot of puns, a lot of rich people jokes inside here. But we see on June 27th, 1987, Superstars, the first vignettes start airing, showcasing who this person is, because this isn't the first time we've seen Ted DiBiase in the WWE. He popped up a few years ago before that as just, hey dude, I'm a good wrestler. Here he's wearing black capes, he's buying jewelry. Talk about the process of a vignette and how that introduced characters, especially around this time, because later on they would just drop this and then try to bring it back in the Attitude Era, and it sort of worked. But during this time, it hit every nail on the head to understand who this person is, why I don't like them, and why I should boo them.
Yeah, and before we even get to talking about that, once he arrived there, it's kind of a fun fact that I know there are people out there that the historians that we have following us that would know this, but earlier it was Ted DiBiase, who had been with the WWF. I think it was still then, or it was had not long been WWF, and where they brought Ted in, and Ted had a little stint there working for Vince Sr. And guess who Hulk Hogan's first match was against at Madison Square Garden? Ted DiBiase.
Yes.
And he went. He says that he went to Vince Sr. because he knew he was going to put this guy over. He said, "How you want me to do it?" And Vince Sr. had such confidence in him, and Ted said I was leaving, and he said, "I trust you. I'll let you do it." And they had a tremendous match. He put Hulk over big time. And the reason I wanted to mention this, because when Ted did go to the WWF, he recounts how the Hulkster came up to him, because he said Hulk couldn't thank him enough back then, and he never forgot. And he said when he got to the WWF, Hulkster went up to him and said, "Great to have you here." Get a little wink and said, "It's payback time." And he said that Terry had a lot to do with helping him get over in the beginning, not just whenever doing stuff at the ring, but backstage too. So that's a little note to it. And you mentioned how are we going to promote this guy? Because once the deal was done, and Ted knew that this was going to be a character that he was going to have to live. Now, we've talked before how kayfabe is, and the way it was back and then, baby faces didn't mix with heels. They traveled separately. If by chance they ran into each other at an airport, they gave each other the stink eye, kind of a thing.
Right.
Anything happened. But more than ever, he had to live this character. Now, you could say, boy, how tough could that be? He got to go around and spend flash $100 bills, ride around in a limousine, stay in these great hotels. Awesome. But more than anything, he had to live this thing all the time. And one of the ways that before they really ever saw him in the ring with the WWF, they would put the guys over. They did this with Mr. Perfect, where they do this series of vignettes, these little features, and they did some great ones. Where I remember they shot them in Stanford, and where they went to Vince's mansion in Greenwich, and they had him poolside, and they had him, do other things where he was at another pool, and makes Virgil clears everybody out, get the hell out of the pool. They pay everybody off so he can have the pool to himself. They wants the honeymoon suite at the hotel, and he kicks the newly married couple out of the suite.
Of course,
and they were generating heat before he even got there. So they were just brilliant. So by the time he got there, he was already over as a big time heel.
I love the fact that cape he's wearing in that vignette is also Vince McMahon's real cape. That's what I find hilarious about this.
Well, and then I think
you want a cape?
Yeah, give me the cape. But he also, Vince used to drive around Stamford. He had a Clanay. I don't know if people know what a Clanay is, but it's this big, garish, ridiculous-looking car with the big fenders, and it's a convertible with 2-seater. And he used to drive around Stamford in that thing, and so they have Ted driving that thing around too. So it was he had a lot of fun with it. There's no question about it.
Of course. I want to play another clip, though, from your interview with him where he talks about living the gimmick and how the opportunity was one that he'll probably never forget.
But when he was laying this all out and saying, okay, and you're going to be the $1 Million Man, and we're going to have you stay in 5-star hotels, you're going to fly first class everywhere you go, and you got to live this in and out of the ring, in and out of the arena. Were you just going, what, really? What was your reaction to that, this was what you were going to be doing if you took the job?
Well, I was flabbergasted. It's like, oh my gosh! Number one, is it really happening? Especially when he walked, the guy walked in the room and counted out $2,000 in brand new $100 bills and said, "This is your flash cash."
Like, go ahead and start spending it.
Yeah, and it's like, pick your spot. And of course, he said, if you abuse it, you lose it. But for instance, you go in a restaurant, you get up and announce yourself. You tell them, I'm the $1 Million Man. It's your lucky night. I'm picking up the tab. Virgil, go get the checks.
Yeah.
And, they would add them up. I'd slap down the $100 bills, get the receipt, take it back to the office. The office gives me more money. It's marketing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It was all marketing. It was just genius. But wow. And that's part of the story. I got all caught up in that.
Yeah.
And it's not so much that, I lived the character in terms of when people saw me in public most of the time. Not so much in my, like, okay, the show's over and I'm going to go back. And I didn't walk through the lobby of the hotel. There were kids that would throw things at me and cuss me when I was walking in the back door of the arena, but the same kids would be standing in the lobby of the hotel with an autograph pad.
Yeah, exactly. They love both. They love the babies and the heels, and they wanted your autograph. But I understand, and I don't think you ever became that character. People might say, "Oh yeah, as $1 Million Man, that's who he became." But you did have to live it in and out of the ring. Was it ever kind of bizarre to you? Because and kayfabe was pretty strong at that point, and they didn't like the babies mixing with the heels and that kind of thing. But like I said, I don't ever believe that you bought the character and were living it. But was it bizarre though that you had to probably carry it further than anybody?
Yeah, it was. It was a little bit bizarre. My wife could even said, she goes when you would come home off the road. She said, you would walk. She said she'd watch me walk from the airplane, and she could just see it. And then she says I'd give you about 10 minutes on the ride home, and she goes, I'd watch your shoulders relax, and all of a sudden you're just Ted again.
Now, that clip is very interesting because it sounds like it's fun to live the gimmick, but also it sounds like a very lonely life because he has to hide. He can't go in the lobby and just have like a regular, say, beer. He has to buy some expensive, extravagant thing he probably as a real person doesn't want. How difficult do you think that would be he's living a double life? And I get it, like when you're pretending you're Kamala on television and you're not Kamala at home, but this is like he's acting like a real person, but yet he can't actually act like a real person.
Yeah, absolutely. And he talks about that it was living two lives. And it was difficult on the road too, because he couldn't mix with the guys like even the heels. He had to always be like he's looking down on them. I wouldn't, debase myself and hang out with these lowlifes, so he had to play it. Now, certainly there were places where they went, and once, these businesses understood that these guys were staying there, and they would make sure that people weren't just hanging around, and they could go to bars and have a bar there and have a drink. But for the most part, really, that's what he had to do. And he said, what was my choice? To just go to my room and they got the TV and go to sleep. That's when it, started to really impact his life. And also remember, Steve, at this point in time with the WWF, those guys would go on, they were on a cycle now that they would do, I think, 21 days and get a week off. And so Ted talks about, what the difference was when you were with a territory. Usually you had the base, you lived in wherever the town was with the base, you had your family and a house. And then when you went on shows, you might go 100 miles away. You could be back the same night, or you might go on a tour or something like that, but it wouldn't be like it was there. Now, this completely upended his life from top to bottom, as far as, you'd be on the road for 21 days. Imagine that. And they're doing shows every day, sometimes double shots. They might have you going across the pond there. You might be doing shows in Europe and coming back. Even Japan, these guys would go over and do stuff. WWF had deals with them. And then you would come back and you get a week. Well, by the time you got home, you maybe 2-3 days to try and live some kind of a normal life. And then they realized that wasn't working too well, and they went to like a 10-day thing, and you get 3 days off. But that, to me, I can't even. It must have been worse in some ways, because what do? You come home, do your laundry, and then get back on a plane. So yeah, you can just imagine what it was like. That here you are, 3 weeks straight of nonstop. You're in this other character's head that you've got to live pretty much 24/7, and then try and step out of it when you go home. And yeah, it had to be surreal. And he did end up, he said everybody pays a price. Well, Ted DiBiase paid a big price to play that character. He did.
There seems to be a theme in all these episodes we talk about. It's where it's like the battle for fame and fortune. You have to lose some things along the way to get there. And honestly, with Ted DiBiase, suddenly he's in the big time. He's in the big show. And you're going to get this great gimmick. You're going to rub shoulders with all the superstars, the main people right away. But you do get to stay in these amazing, lavish places, but with nobody. You're constantly going to be by yourself. Even though it's like saying, like, oh, you can get $1 million. You not $1 million. You can be like, here's $1 billion, but you can't see your wife for 21 days. You can't hang out with your friends, your coworkers, because technically we can't let the world know that they're your coworkers and you actually like them. Like, that to me sounds like one of those a lose-lose situation. You're famous, but you can't actually live a life. Like, it's very strange. Like, obviously he did it, and he's one of the greatest of all times, but the sacrifice to become one of the greatest of all times it's gotta be heavy, man. The price to wear these crowns. But he again, those vignettes are hilarious though. But also on top of that, you mentioned it, Virgil gets involved. And this is a topic I think people either are all on board with or absolutely hate or believe the conspiracies. But we're going to play a clip from your interview with $1 Million Man about the Virgil character. And then I really want to dive into a lot of thoughts about this character, because either you love him or you hate him.
Ted Virgil was with you everywhere. Ted, you couldn't get away with a character like that today.
No. Oh, no. No, not at all. Not at all.
But was there heat? Was there a lot of heat outside of that? And I always wondered how Virgil handled it. And I mean, he was part of this business, and but was there a backlash at that time that people maybe never really knew about?
No. Virgil. He was a nice enough guy. He never. I think he appreciated the spot more than anything. And I don't know. There's not he's not the smartest brick, in the the smartest book in the library. I mean, he's
Virgil. He doesn't mean that.
Yeah, I mean, if he could, if he'd have been able to wrestle better, if he just didn't have that.
Yeah.
But what he did have, he had an unbelievable look. I mean, kept himself in great shape. I mean, the guy didn't drink, smoke, or do drugs.
Yeah.
And he was always on time, and we got along well. I mean, it just I would just have to explain things to him, over and over sometimes. but for the position that he was hired for, he was perfect.
Oh, he was great. Never smiled. I mean, he had that. Yeah.
And we got along fine.
Good old Virgil. He fit the package perfectly. But the question I have for you, though, is before we actually get into the character, the name Virgil. That's not his real name. But the story, and Bruce Pritchard has said, no, this is not true, which I don't believe him. So I want to hear your thoughts. Is Virgil the name, the gimmick, the character? Is he named after Dusty Rhodes, whose real name is Virgil, as a jab at him?
Reynolds, yeah. I mean, come on. Where else would you just come up with that name? And I think Vince enjoyed doing jabs like that. There were the other examples that he would do that as a matter of showing people control and also just giving shots across the bow just to do that. That's never been confirmed, and there was nobody closer to Vince McMahon than Bruce Pritchard. So you got to go along with that if that's what he says. But it's just a little bit too much of a coincidence, I think, for me that he would do that. Now, down the road there, I think Dusty certainly proved himself who he was and what he could do, and was with the company basically up until he passed. So that was a lot of that was just business envy, whatever was going on. The fact that they were always competing with the WCW and and the shots that they took their number of shots too. And Vince was somebody who took it quite personally as well. So my feeling on it was, I think that there was a little bit of a shot at Dusty.
Yeah.
With that character.
It's surprising when Bruce said it wasn't, like, buddy.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know you're a Vince McMahon protector.
Things that make you go
so much. Yeah. I know you protect Vince and you love Vince and things like that nature, but there's sometimes when things are so obvious to you, it's like you have a smoking gun in your hand, there's a dead body in front of you, like, I didn't do it. Like,
I'm pulling trigger. I just picked up this gun after whoever it was shot him.
It seems like it's a rib. And then we bring up the polka dots, people believe that's a rib. But here the name, it's gotta be a rib. And you kind of brought it up where it's like the WWF invented pay-per-views just to compete with Crockett, to just hurt their business. They still do these tactics in today's world. Like, there's not that's a one-off. No, there's a track record as we get here to Virgil, the character. You've already done this a bunch of different times with different events and different characters. You're telling me that this instance, though, it's not a rib, it's not personal. I personally, I find that hard to believe, but in reality, I did love Virgil. And you said in your interview, though, Rare, that you couldn't get away with this gimmick in today's world. I'm curious, though, like, is he not a paid bodyguard, or do you believe he's supposed to be, unfortunately, a slave?
Well, I wouldn't go that far as far as, say a slave. I would say, as a servant, valet, that kind of thing.
He's an employee, though. Of the $1 million man, right? Okay.
Yes. And but I still think you would have, no matter how you try and explain it, someone else basically in servitude to another person it doesn't go over well. And I was surprised when I asked him, was there more backlash to it? And he said, no, not really. And I have to imagine that Virgil must have taken some crap from people, not even just heat, that like, what are you doing? You're not, representing yourself very well doing this. But I also understand, you got to understand that Virgil was part of this business. He knew what sold, and my God, that whole thing was big time over. And at the same time, he got to enjoy the perks of it as well. And Ted had mentioned, that Virgil, he was certainly capable in the ring, but he was certainly not going to get much of a push because he just wasn't that skilled. He wasn't at that level. So the opportunity that he had was tremendous, and he understood it. And he was a person he knew that he needed to have that look, that bodyguard look, who could probably not, handle any bad situation. He kept himself in good shape. He didn't. He wasn't one of those guys. He wasn't a party guy. Remember, you never saw him there. He didn't take a drink. He didn't, go out because he knew, I'm not going to blow this opportunity.
Right.
And showed up when he was supposed to be somewhere because he appreciated the chance that he had, and he milked it for everything he had, and got a chance to have that run at the end with Ted. I mean, it was a great run for him.
Yeah, it's funny because years would go on, and obviously Virgil is no longer here, but you would see these pictures, like the lonely Virgil. He'd be at signings and no one was signing autographs. And it was kind of, oh man, it sucks, man, for this guy, because when you watch Virgil from this point on in 87 with him and Ted DiBiase, when Virgil breaks off and wins the $1 Million Championship and does all these great things, even goes to WCW and has a long, lengthy run, I never was like, oh, well, what's he doing here? It was more just like, you fit this exact role perfectly for being the $1 Million Man's bodyguard. You have big muscles. You have a good look. He was always counting money like he was going to rip it. He was always doing it so intently. And all you have to do is grab someone's foot or hit them from behind. He didn't have to do much until he actually had to get in the match. So I never really understood the hate towards the Virgil character, because I thought it fit perfectly. I get in today's world where people would be very upset with this.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, the casting of it was absolutely perfect. Ted was perfect for that gimmick, and so was Virgil. And it gave Ted, another opportunity to mistreat somebody, and treat them badly, and keep that heat level up. He didn't have to necessarily be kicking a basketball out from under poor child's bouncing hand, which was one of the greatest. That arena that night, my God, Ted talked about how he doesn't know how he got out of there alive. But anyway, but that was, Virgil could always be that one to take that level of mistreatment and just keep it simmering all the time. You knew that at some point it was going to blow, and you just wondered, okay, when is it when he finally has had enough?
Took a long time till 1991 for them to really break up.
Well, I'm sure he didn't want it to happen too soon. let's keep this going. I'm getting paid.
With a poor lonely Virgil.
Paid,
After the vignettes, though, then we start seeing DiBiase in the arenas, as you alluded to, and he is offering children and people in the audience money to do simple tasks: buff my shoes, bounce this basketball. And a long time ago, a buddy of mine were discussing about the $1 Million Man, and he goes, "Is $1 Million Man really a heel?" I go, "What do you mean?" He's like, "He's offering money to people to do simple things." I'm like, "Yeah, but he's going to trick him in the end and not give him any money." He's like, "Yeah, but he's humiliating them. Still putting out the offer for the money." I'm like, "That's crazy. He's still a heel." But I do want to play that clip from your episode with $1 Million Man talking about one of these moments that clearly there was heat in that.
I'm going to say the gimmick we did that I hear more about, and I hear it all the time, is the deal we did on television with the little boy and the basketball.
Yep.
I mean, people want to go, "Man, did you really do that?" And I said, "No, of course not." And I said, "It was staged." I said, "We rehearsed it." I said, "But when we did it live, I had to be hardcore." He's a little boy, 6 years old. It scared the heck out of me.
Yeah, I think he was he cried. Remember at the end of that, he was crying. So boy, you talk about selling it.
oh yeah. I mean, he couldn't have done a better job. I remember getting in the back and everybody was high-fiving, and I said, "I'm glad you're all happy. Now find an armored vehicle to get me out of the building."
Yeah. That's real heat, man.
Oh man, I remember that night. Oh my God, it was because it was so perfect. He mentions that, he said they went through with this whole thing. His mom was right there, and they explained everything. This is what he's going to do. You just bounce the ball, and then Ted's gonna $1 Million Man's gonna kick that ball out, and everybody's going to be all upset. I mean, they went over it, but as Ted said, he you do it one way, and then when the lights on, he takes it to another level. And of course the crowd, the kid didn't know, he was kind of intimidated by all that noise and people booing, and then when he does it, the kid was just frightened and emotional. He wasn't thinking, oh, that mean man just kicked the ball out. It was just like, oh my God, and people screaming and so as he said, they did get paid. I think it was $500 that was the deal. Yeah, if you can bounce it 10 times, whatever it was, you're going to get $500. They got the money. So even though it didn't happen. But,
what do you mean they got the money?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. I've revealed that he had a soft spot after all.
Well, it's funny though. It's like, he's like, yeah, I had to stay in these 5-star hotels and I couldn't have friends, but we did pay this lady who was screaming about her son getting the ball kicked out from under. Like, what if that lady goes to the news and says $1 Million Man's not actually a bad guy?
Oh boy. No, yeah. It was great. That was one of the best ever. But that's why it just works so well. And it's the best of the best are the ones that can raise that level of heat to new levels. And Ted DiBiase was able to do that. So one of the best ever.
And it's funny that Rob Van Dam, as a young kid, was part of one of these moments of being in the ring and the $1 Million Man offering him money. So it's just one of those, another fun fact for you here on the Golden Era podcast. But the biggest thing that happens, I think, in the beginning, the first year of the $1 Million Man's career, is when he starts offering money to Hulk Hogan in late 80, beginning of 87. He wants to buy the world championship. And this is something like Hulk Hogan is your pure baby face. He's obviously not going to accept this offer. But then we head into February 5th, 1988. We're getting a WrestleMania 3 rematch on television on NBC, which breaks so many damn records. Over 30 million people watch this event happen. Tell me, you interviewed $1 Million Man, but like, what do you think is going through everyone's brains? Because you're having a WrestleMania 3 rematch, which you could have easily done at WrestleMania 4, which you actually technically do in a tournament. But like, you gave up pay-per-view money to make history on prime time. Like, what do you think of a strategy if Vince McMahon is going with? Like, should we do pay-per-view buy rates, or should we do a big pop on ratings for NBC?
Well, I think it was all part of the strategy. That was, part of the mix too. Vince was very aware of spreading his product, and where better than to do it on network television. I mean, as you mentioned, that's when you did big, gigantic numbers. You didn't have a whole lot of options as far as the cable went. So that was a gigantic audience and, massive coverage of it. And it worked. But even before we talk more about that, though, but think at this time, Ted DiBiase, really, you're talking, he's just got there in a sense that, his first year in the company here, and he's already getting these opportunities. And it just shows you that, they didn't have to really build this guy up. He was over the second that he started stepping into the ring. And I think that is a credit to Ted's matureness, that he was this very seasoned vet, already had this incredible presence, so that you could put him in right away and be able to take him right to the top of the card. So, I think that was a brilliant move, not only to spread the word on the audience, get more people watching the WWE, but also to get this character over. And, they already had plans for what was going to happen at WrestleMania. So I think that, it was a win-win, I think is the best answer to say that, because not only did you get this gigantic audience and maybe you didn't get the payday then, but I think that it started paying bigger dividends from that point on. And then we saw where it went from there.
We talked about this on Survivor Series 91, which that became a commercial for this Tuesday in Texas. This event, the main event on February 5th, 1988, This doesn't start promoting WrestleMania 4, but this creates WrestleMania 4. It without the outcome of this match sets us up for WrestleMania 4.
Yeah, exactly.
And obviously, Superstars Wrestling Challenge, you're talking about what happened in the main event, non-stop, which then gives you the option for months to build to WrestleMania 4 versus what happened with Survivor Series 91 and this Tuesday in Texas. But this night for $1 Million Man's got to be huge because he's part of a giant World Championship match. But this is also the double referee storyline. Double referee. How much did the plastic surgery cost as Hulk Hogan screams to the heavens? Because the $1 Million Man apparently is so rich that he paid a man to get plastic surgery to look like Dave Hebner, the referee that evening. And boom, we have a cheating referee. When Hogan's shoulder is down 1, 2, 3, he popped it up at 2, but the referee, who's evil, didn't see it. We have a new world champion. Andre the Giant wins the championship and then gives it to the $1 Million Man because $1 Million Man said he'd buy it from him if he won it. And boom, now
everybody's got a price.
Technically is the world champion.
Yeah, everybody's got a price, Steve, and Ted DiBiase knew it. And that was also what was so great about this whole storyline and the gimmick that it just goes to the base of human nature. You see him doing all these humiliating things to people. You see what he can do to these people you think could never be corrupted, but everybody's got a price. And I know how at some point, you can sit there and say, I would never do that. Well, would you do it for this? Oh, I might not, never. Well, how about this? Oh, okay. So, so that's why it was just awesome. And that, so no matter what he wanted, that's what, the way you looked at the $1 Million Man, it wasn't so much that he loved the professional wrestling aspect of it. He was this egomaniac who wanted to just control and get everything he wanted. And he knew all it comes down to is money. And there was always that element of, okay, so, and we've seen this in many different characters, but how much of the $1 Million Man was also Vince McMahon? How much of that whole way of thinking and you would hear people talk about that all the time, that this was certainly Vince's thinking, this his character, that he was kind of living through this $1 Million Man.
Wow. It's funny you think about that because, I heard stories like Vince McMahon that's Vince McMahon's cape, as we brought up earlier, when Mandela Man's wearing it. That's his pool. Mandela Man is doing vignettes at. That's his car he's driving around in. That's the jeweler. Like there's all these connections to Connecticut and to Vince McMahon and to the $1 Million Man. But I also look at $1 Million Man as a James Bond villain because he's paying a man to get plastic surgery to look like the real official referee. Because like Mission Impossible, just rip a mask off. In the ring, it's live theater. It's impossible just to be like, oh, you saw my face? Eric Bischoff pulled it off very nicely as a priest many years from now. But here, it's got to be one of those greatest storylines of all time because it's one of those tricks like Wile E. Coyote. You can only pull this trick off once. You can't do it twice. And if you screw it up, it's over. It's done. It's never can be replaced ever again. To you, Golden Era, you come in May of 88. This is something I asked Earl Hebner about, and he's like, it was the greatest night of my career. And he had a long career after this. Like, to you, where do you land on $1 Million Man buys the world title after paying someone to get plastic surgery to look like the official in the match to screw over Hulk Hogan, who hasn't lost the championship ever up until this point?
Oh, it's one of the greatest. And I remember back then, I'm like, how are they going to pull this off? Everybody's got it. In the wrestling business, the Hebners were, who didn't know? I'm surprised, that the dirt sheets and everything there wasn't more to it. That, that he's got a twin or, that would be out, whatever. But they pulled this thing off and the reveal was, absolutely perfect. It was just great. And the idea that, the two of them, you couldn't tell the difference. They were, in a sense, identical that back then. And so it was. And I, when I used to see them too, I couldn't tell who was who. I would always, have whatever that guy was wearing, that I would make sure that I knew, because I didn't want to run to him and say, "Hey, Earl," or hey, Dave, because. But it's great, and why wouldn't it be the greatest night of their careers? I mean, it was the focus was on them. The aftermath of it was tremendous, and those two had pretty damn good careers with the WWE following it. So yeah, it was a great way to go to the next level as far as referees go, and they're certainly not just from that one gimmick, that one storyline, but that's what everybody remembers.
Oh yeah, it's got to be up there. And I want to share one last clip from your interview with $1 Million Man about his thoughts on the double referee and being there that night.
People ask me all the time about highlights of your career, and I mean, oh my gosh, Market Square Arena, the rematch between Hulk and Andre from WrestleMania 3, first time wrestling's on live network television since the 1950s. And of course, the story is Hulk and Andre, but the story in the story is me buying Andre's services. And, actually that ended up being the setup for WrestleMania 4. And that's what really launched me. And then to wrestle at WrestleMania 4, basically I turned Randy Savage babyface.
Yeah.
We have the final match and he comes out the winner. And then then we were off and running. Me and Andre in matches against Hulk and Randy all over the country, and then Hulk and any one of a number of guys. And it was an unbelievable run.
He puts it there. Yeah, man. Selling the world title, getting that from Andre, but then, as we've talked about so far, President Jack Tunney uses his authority, and he voids this. You can't buy a championship. He actually has to make a law. He has to make a law. Reptiles are still allowed at ringside, but guess what? You can't buy championships here. Not underneath my watch. Warden Tunney here. So DiBiase technically is never officially a WWF champion. If you go through the reigns and the rankings or whatever, he's not there, but they vacate the title. And we have a tournament at WrestleMania 4. And again, they have Andre versus Hogan on this pay-per-view. It's even billed as the rematch, the WrestleMania rematch, which we just saw about a few months ago. Mm-hmm. And WrestleMania 4, people love it or they hate it. Where do you land on that? Because it's 4 hours long. And if you bought it in VHS, you had to buy both VHS tapes. You couldn't buy one. You had to buy them both because when one ran out, got to put the other tape in. So what were your thoughts on this event?
Oh, I loved it. I just thought that I was all in on the $1 Million Man, whatever he would do, because as I said, he preyed on the basest, needs of human beings, that he knew that bottom line, that's, you could be the nicest person in the world. And yet he could make you lick his shoes. He could say, "Hey, see that lady there? I bet you I could make her lick my shoes." And you'd be going, "No way. Nobody would go that low." And next thing you see, there's this beautiful woman licking his shoes because
$500.
Everybody's got a price, And so that's why, it shook up this idea of the integrity of professional wrestling, of the WWE, that he could come in and disrupt it, because there's no way this could be corrupted. Well, you know what? Yeah, right behind your back, and this guy's handing the belt because you know why? He paid him. And that Jack Tunney has to make that clear that you can't do that. Really?
You got to make it clear.
Yeah. So it is that's the greatest, the greatest, everything about it is that, everybody's got a price. That's brilliant. And that's, rarely did he find anybody who didn't. But then, as he mentioned, being the chicken shit heel, he would eventually get his. Somebody would stand up to him and say, "No, that's not the way it works," and knock him on his ass again. And then DiBiase would figure out a way to get up and find someone else to corrupt. So it was just all the way around. So I thought the storyline for WrestleMania 4 was brilliant. I thought it was I certainly loved that part of it.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a long
Other
event.
stuff. Okay, but that's another episode.
Yes, we'll have to do a full episode on WrestleMania
Yeah.
4. I'll rent the VHS tapes at Blockbuster Video, and we'll have to watch it together. Those things don't exist anymore, unfortunately. The main event, though, of WrestleMania 4 is the $1 Million Man versus the Macho Man, Randy Savage, in the finals of the World Title Tournament. Macho Man beats him. This gets Hulk Hogan involved, Miss Elizabeth, Virgil, Andre, and it's clearly the night we're crowning new babyface Macho Man to set Hogan off to go do a little bit of Hollywood, as Macho Man can carry the load by himself. But the fact that $1 Million Man, his vignette started playing in June of 87. By March of 88, he is in the main event of WrestleMania. Yeah. There was clearly a plan from day one, and it all worked out, or possibly the success of this character really established us, because if they didn't have, my brain is Vince McMahon must have known, because this character goes through the rankings, gets very popular, tries to buy the world title from Hogan, and immediately gets thrusted into all of this extra stuff. So to me, it screams like we had this plan from the beginning, and we got to find the right guy for this. But again, after this, we actually get the birth of SummerSlam. The Mega Bucks versus the Mega Powers, with Jesse the Body Ventura involved in the ring as well. It's Andre in the $1 Million Man versus Hulk Hogan and Macho Man. And Miss Elizabeth is supposed to be the secret weapon, and she's going to be in an itsy bitsy teeny weeny yellow polka dot bikini.
Not going to happen, brother. Not going to happen.
No, if you're going to be distracted in the ring by a beautiful female like Miss Elizabeth, and you're describing this itsy bitsy teeny weeny yellow polka dot bikini, and the ending of this match involves this moment of Liz showcasing her goods, I guess we would say, it distracts everybody. What were your thoughts on the ending of this first ever SummerSlam? And what are your thoughts on, is it actually technically an itsy bitsy teeny weeny yellow polka dot bikini?
No, it was a frumpy,
frumpy dumpy, sumpy dumpy, dumpy.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, there was. It was not what everybody thought they might see, and not that they were expecting a thong by any stretch, but at least give us something. Right. She had a poster out. Yeah, she had a poster out. I remember that, where she was doing the kind of aerobics look. That was a lot of people loved that. So I think people would have, even if you would have put her in a pair of tights, would have been better than what they got. So I just it was a wah, as far as that went. But it was, as Ted said, he turned Randy's babyface, and it was going to take a big personality to do that. And Ted was certainly the man for the job. And look where Randy went from there.
Yeah, we had the Mega Powers unite even a little before this, and then they got going. And again, like I say, the idea of SummerSlam is a brand new concept. We're going to ask you to shell out more pay-per-view money, which was unheard of, because we only had WrestleMania. Now we're going to have SummerSlam, but you're also going to get the main event of WrestleMania, which was Macho Man and DiBiase, but you're also going to get Hogan and Andre on opposite teams, and they're going to fight each other. That, to me, on paper, sounds like, oh my God, like I got to convince my parents, or you're going to put your money down to see Andre and Hogan. But now, we'll have to do an Andre episode 2 at this point, because it feels like they're really hoping that the Hogan and Andre dust is going to sprinkle off on $1 Million Man and Macho Man to carry the load, because Andre can't keep going. Hogan's trying to go do Hollywood. But $1 Million Man, he carries this. He's the one bumping around for Hogan. He's the one bumping around for Macho Man, making them look like $1 million. And it's got to say something. When you talked about earlier, Hogan giving the wink to $1 Million Man when he shows back up, saying, hey man, payback. Hogan certainly paid him back all the way full with interest for the run that he had in year 1 in the WWF. Would you agree?
Yeah, absolutely. And Hulk Hogan's taken a lot of heat over the years over other situations, but as far as being solid for Ted DiBiase, and after that, so long before that he put him over at Madison Square Garden, that the Hulkster never forgot. And Ted has talked about it many times, how there were many instances where, not that he wasn't a big star, not that he couldn't have pulled it off, but that Hulk help push him along. And so, yeah, that was definitely payback. And I also want to mention here that we're also seeing here that we've got big enough personalities that you can have an event like that, a tag team match, and with 4 very strong characters where, at this point, Vince had already been thinking about, that they were riding the Hulkster and Hulkamania is running wild, but he's also thinking about, I don't know how long that's going to run. I need other people. He knew that Andre was his body was breaking down. He wasn't going to have a whole lot left in him. And then here you've got Randy Savage, and then you've got the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase. And as we saw when you and I have talked before about, for example, of the Ultimate Warrior was somebody who came in and shot straight to the top. But as I have mentioned before, he didn't have the layers. My God, did Ted DiBiase have layers? And that's why this character was just so awesome, because of everything behind it. The guy was a very skilled ring tactician. He also cut great promos coming in. Vince knew that was part of it, why he wanted him. He had a presence about him, and he could pull off this chicken shit heel where again and again he found ways where he would continue being this over the top egocentric jerk, and he would get knocked down, but he always came back. He always had another angle, another way to get in. And that's what we were seeing here. And as you said, he could carry it, and he did, and had a great run ahead, as we will eventually get into. I don't know if we can do it this episode, Steve, but a lot, what's to come for the $1 Million Man, Ted DiBiase.
Yeah, we're already hitting an hour, and I got 10 more pages of notes here. So I think we're going to have to cap this one here and call this one year 1 of the $1 Million Man, summer to summer, from June to August, because June 87 to SummerSlam 88, because to me, you come in and everything you got going is working. Everything you're doing is affecting the business. You're rubbing shoulders with main event stars. You're not just a guy showing up and getting a payday. Like $1 Million Man, one of the top heels of all time. And this year, there's a lot of people who have good years. Kurt Angle, Brock Lesnar, there's a few people. And I think $1 Million Man belongs on greatest first years in the WWE's history, because what he does, what he creates. And he paid a man to get plastic surgery to screw over Hulk Hogan to buy the world title. You're not a heel if you're not paying someone to get getting surgery done to your face to look like somebody else. Not just being a bad guy beating you up. No, he's doing different shit there.
Yeah, and he's got a great gimmick. He understands it. He knows what the opportunity he has here, and he fulfilled everything and more than Vince McMahon, I think, could have ever expected. He was perfect for the job, but as we will discuss with everything, as the $1 Million Man says, it comes with a price, and he would eventually pay a big one. And I hope when we would do the next episode of this, that I want to get into who he is as a man and where he came from. It explains a lot of what. Why he was able to do what he did early on, and then why it eventually caught up to him and almost cost him everything.
Well, as this episode ends, me and my friends would also joke that he was the $1 Million Man, and he couldn't have any more money in the bank. He couldn't have any less money in the bank. He had to have $1 million to be the $1 Million Man. That was a joke me and my friends had. It's a terrible one, but it always made me laugh, and it made you laugh today.
It's the golden age of WWE. Larger than life of fantasy, step in the ring, feel history. Welcome to the golden WWE.